Hi everybody, Morphy here. I'm here with Neil, the 604 Atheist, who had me on his channel a few weeks ago. Now, Neil to me looks like, because I know he plays in a band, and he has that appearance where he looks like a rocker who probably drives a Harley. But somebody told me that he actually has a little scooter and he does K-pop. Is this true, Neil?
It's a lie. It's a big, bad lie. I used to be a member of BTS. No, I'm just kidding. My roommate's a big fan of BTS, but no, they do much better than I do with my crappy little band. No, it's just basically rock and roll, old school bluesy kind of rock and roll stuff.
All right, okay. There are a few Canadian bands that I've followed for a while. Rush, I'm a big fan of Rush.
Yeah, who isn't? They're fucking incredibly gifted and talented musicians. So.
Yeah, Neil Peart died, didn't he, just recently? Is that?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. They had a huge time off after his family died in an accident, which was very sad, isn't it?
Took a hiatus for like over a year, I believe.
And then they came back with Test for Echo, which I think is just absolutely brilliant. I sometimes just put Test for Echo on and play it over and over and over.
Yeah, it's good. I love most of their work. There's a few albums in there where I'm like, but most of it is. But their early stuff is my favorite.
Yeah, I've got what was the album that In the End came from? That was I think it was their second album.
In the End? Oh, you mean Fly By Night?
Fly By Night. Yeah, I love that album. I love it so much. And 2112, Hemispheres, Moving Pictures. I love so much of their stuff.
Oh, yeah, me too. I think Fly By Night was the first album featured Neil Peart, because their first album, This Is Rush or whatever it was called, they didn't have Neil Peart in the band at the time.
Well, I think I've listened to the first album, and I think it's apparent in the improvement in the lyrics, because Peart wrote all the lyrics.
Yes.
I did actually see them once in Glasgow Exhibition Centre, and it was huge. I mean, you could hardly see the stage from where I was. It was, but I could not believe the sound that three guys could get live, and they were just, because they were playing pedals and double neck guitars, and it was just amazing, incredible. Yeah, like you say, very, very talented. So,
I've seen them 4 times, so yeah, it's always great to see them live. They always put on a great show.
Yeah. I guess their show was very, very much like, huge laser show and all this sort of stuff. But they're very, very busy on stage because they're trying to produce the sound that they produce with just 3 of them, and it's incredible because they didn't, like a lot of bands do. I went to see Roger Waters at the O2 Arena just before I moved to Australia, actually. And he's got like a whole virtually orchestra behind him and backing singers and all the rest of it to get that sound.
Another fantastic musician too.
Oh yeah. I love Pink Floyd is.
Oh, me too.
The lengths the lengths that they used to go to get the sounds that they got, because I watched the video on the making of Wish You Were Here, and the 4 notes do 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 do. To get that distant sound, because they didn't have all the electronics back in those days that they've got now, he actually went to sort of virtually an aircraft hangar, and he put the amplifiers at one end and he stood at the other end.
Yeah.
to get that sound, the lengths that they went to get sounds. I don't know.
Many bands did stuff like that just to get specific sounds. I mean, Zeppelin also rented out a house that was this great big cavernous house that they used for, I think it was Houses of the Holy. Anyways, one of those ones where they rented a house to do some of the recording in, just to get specific sounds.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever listened to any Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they're probably my favourite band.
I dig quite a bit of their songs. There's some stuff of theirs that I find kind of dragging and monotonous, but there's a lot of their tunes are quite good.
Yeah. To get the sounds for Tales for Topographic Oceans, they tiled the recording studio because they wanted to get the acoustics of a bathroom. So they tiled the whole recording studio to get that sort of vibrating sort of sound.
That's cool.
Yeah, the lengths that these people went to, it's just.
Oh yeah.
But the product is so good, and yeah, Genesis I love a lot as well, especially the early stuff when Peter Gabriel was still with them.
Me too. Big Gabriel
Yeah.
fan, so yeah.
Yeah, me too. Oh well, that's a good start to this. So I think you've convinced me that whoever it was that told me, and I'm mentioning no names, that you did K-pop was indeed lying.
Do I look like a K-pop guy to you?
Well, yeah, but this is it. You could just be trying to throw everybody off.
Yeah, deception. Yeah, I'm the big ass biker looking K-pop guy because the two go so well together.
Yeah, I forgot to mention to you that the Morph Show is kind of a family show, so I hope you're not eating your gummy bears during this interview.
Oh my god. Well, not those ones in particular. I'm eating the more family-friendly gummies, we'll say.
I saw on Twitter the other week that Robert Reed was into the gummy bears, the less family-friendly ones, and yeah, he was shall we say, tweeting not fully compos mentis for a while. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, Neil, was your recent appearance on Talk Heathen.
Yes.
And you've done that before, haven't you, as well?
I'd been on Truth Wanted twice now. The first time, though, my processing speed and internet couldn't handle it, so it crapped out for about 20 minutes until we got me up and running again. But the second time, there was no issues, so it went a lot better. And with the Talk Heathen episode, I think we got lucky with a lot of amicable callers. So we were able to have some pretty relatively calm and level-headed discourse with most of these people. Most of them, I'll say, because there were a couple of times when I wanted to smash my head on the table. But, there was one fella that always kind of pops into my chats every once in a while when I'm going live, and his name is Cafe. And he's always going on about DMT and how you have to have DMT to notice another reality. And I'm like, what? Dude, that's a drug. It's altering your brain. That's not reality. Come on. Like, as soon as you alter your brain, you're no longer dealing with reality. So, and he just can't get that around his head for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's come up a few times on different shows that I've watched where people talk about this, ordered reality, take DMT or some, psilocybin or something else like that. Okay, now we're a family-friendly show, so, please, kids, don't go and munch any mushrooms that you shouldn't. It's like Neil's gummy bears. But, but like you say, if you are altering your brain chemistry, why would you believe that as being more real than what you perceive when you're not on the drug?
I have no idea. And that's what I kept asking. It's like, how do you get that this is somehow a reality-based thing that you're experiencing when it is clearly your brain chemistry changing because of a drug? And he just, all these studies, I don't care about studies. What were they, studies done in some dude's garage? Like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it does. With any of these type of studies, and I guess that they're psychology studies, they find it very difficult to replicate studies in psychology, from what I've heard.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in psychology at all, but I've got a friend who actually teaches psychology, and he said that exactly that, because he's also a science teacher and a psychology teacher, and he was talking about the difference between studies in science, where we can perform the experiment 20 years later in a different setting and you get the same results, but in psychology, the results change all the time because people have a different life experience as we move through time. So studies that you did 20 years ago, you might get a completely different result now because people are coming from a different place when they do the studies.
Exactly. I know that with scientific research, you can make experiments, and then make predictions based on the experiment, see what happens, see if it's valid, and then you come to your conclusions and then send it out to peer review. That's how that works. With psychology, it's a little different. I mean, they can plug you into a brain reading machine and try to do some types of studies, and they are doing stuff like that to try and improve studies on how the brain works and neuroscience and stuff like that. But I think we're still quite a ways off to really nailing things down, although they've made huge strides since they started doing this. But, we're still going. We're still trying to figure things out.
Before I just want to do a digression, because I do this because my brain's a bit grasshoppery. The 604 Atheist, you've probably explained this on your show at some side. Where does that come from?
Well, the 604 is the area code, the actual very first and main area code for Vancouver Lower Mainland. So it used to be for the entire province of BC, but once the population got bigger and bigger, they had to split it to Vancouver Lower Mainland and surrounding area, and then outside of that, which became 250. So because I live in the Vancouver Lower Mainland area, I went with the 604 moniker. So it just means it says, I'm Neil, the Vancouver Atheist.
Okay. The only one?
Well, no, but I'm just, that's just the name I chose because it kind of ran off the tongue. I don't know. I was just popped up, hey, how about 604? And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? And I was like, ooh.
So you're the 604 Atheist rather than just a 604 Atheist then?
Something like that. Although I know many atheists here in the 604 area. So,
yeah. What's it like there? Because I know Canada varies by region.
In Vancouver, I would say we're fairly secularish as a community. You don't hear a lot of overly religious stuff going on, except for in small little areas. Like where there's an area just outside of where I live called Mission and Abbotsford area, and just the name alone, Mission, should say something. There's quite a little bit of a larger, we'll say, Christian population over there, and they have the Trinity Western Church, who is trying to impose their views to not allow specific students in if they're like homosexuals or something like that, or they're trying to assert themselves into people's basic rights, and there's a lot of fighting going on against that, right? So
yeah, it always annoys me, that sort of stuff. Yeah. We had our plebiscite here in 2017 on marriage equality. Mm-hmm. And the No campaign was, basically religiously driven, and I was quite annoyed by it because apparently a number of the Baptist schools, and I don't know how many, and a few other Christian denomination schools, wrote to parents of their students and asked them to vote no. And you might say, well, they're a private school, maybe they have a right to do that, but in Australia, private schools still get government funds. Mm-hmm. So they receive $7,000 a year, I think it is, for each student in a high school. And it's less than that in primary school. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's quite a large amount. Does
this come out of taxpayer money, though?
It is. The theory is here that everybody is paying tax towards education. If you choose to take your child and educate them in an independent school, mm-hmm. you should still get the benefit of that tax that you're paying. That's the idea. I'm not totally. I mean, school fees are much lower here in Australia because of that. When I was in the UK, fees would be 3-4 times as much as they are here. So a very large number of the population are in independent schools. But the problem I have with that is that most independent schools have some sort of religious bent.
Right.
And then you've got this situation where the Baptist schools are writing out to parents while still receiving government money. And to me, there's something not right about that. They should be keeping themselves well and truly out of politics.
Yeah, I agree. That's right in there with the whole state and church separation shit, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I'd love to speak to somebody who knows a bit about the sort of voucher system in the United States. But it seems to me like that's a way of the government funding private schools as well, from what I've heard. And if those places are also inserting themselves into politics, that's just not right. Mm-hmm. Especially since, I don't know, it just drives me nuts that anything that people are just people. This is the way I see it. People are just people, and they have different views on things, and they have different sexual orientations, and etc. etc. And it's all natural because it's gone on since before people had even invented a god. And before we were even humans, because when you look at the animal population, things like homosexuality are rampant in the animal populations as well. Primates, about 10% of all primates. And apparently, this is a little thing I picked up while I was sort of researching this, is that giraffes are apparently the most gay animal that they know about. And it's actually more common for them to have homosexual rather than heterosexual sex. And so it's something that's obviously completely natural, but of course they're denying nature, aren't they? That's the whole thing. God created rather than that things have evolved and we've all got common ancestors and things like that. So,
well, maybe sure. I mean, even if he did create, then he created homosexuals too.
Yeah,
clearly, because it goes on, not just in humans, but animals too.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, does drive me nuts, and it's just a little bugbear of mine. I'm actually thinking of doing a little monologue about it, just scripting one up, because a number of these schools in our local area, just on their website, they've got statements of faith for staff, where you have to sign a statement of faith to say that you believe this, that, and the other. And
really, wow.
It's just, so you have to believe in, 6,000-year-old Earth when you're teaching evolution in the classroom. Yes.
Or geology.
Yeah. Anyway, just little bugbears of mine. So I want to come back to your appearance on Talk Heathen. I think that I would be desperately bad on this show, and I was very impressed by the way you handled it. And so, what's the approach you take when you gear up to do something like that?
I always aim to have, good conversations. I don't intend to start tearing strips off people, unless of course they do or say something that they deserve it. Then I'm more apt to be that guy, more of a Matt Dillahunty style rather than more of a Anthony Magnabosco style. But I'm more into the Socratic method type talking about stuff like, well, how do you know that, or what's your level of confidence on your belief in this, that kind of stuff, right? So when I went on to Talk Heathen, it's funny because I was speaking to V before we went live, and I'm like, I'll be calm and cool and rational. I can be that guy. And she's like, well, people dig it when you go all apeshit on them too. So you can do that when it's necessary. And I'm like, yeah, I will. Don't worry. But my aim or goal is to have good conversations, try and build bridges rather than burn them. So I always find it's better if you go into the attitude with when the caller calls in, like, hey, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day, kind of thing. So what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? And they state whatever they have to state. And I go, okay, blah, blah, blah. We'll then carry on with that conversation in whatever direction I think is appropriate to go with. Like, well, how do you know that? Or how did you discover that? What's your sources? That kind of thing. That's just how I handle stuff.
Yeah. I think V's been an excellent co-host coming on. And in fact, I think it's better now than it used to be with Eric and Jamie. I think Eric and V is better, V and just about anybody else who's had on as well as a co-host. It's been really, really good. There were a couple of calls from that I was going to mention today.
Sure.
And you've already mentioned one of them, which is Michael with the drugs. You said that he's So one of the calls that I was going to mention, and this is an example of how you handled it really well, and I would have been absolutely awful, was the young lad, Hadi Sufi, who phoned in, and he was talking about how he felt that his Islamic beliefs made things better and how he helped out with charity. And of course, he's coming from a point of view where he's growing up in America, where he has a lot of freedoms and one thing and another.
Sure, which is very different from anywhere other Muslims come from, like in the Middle East and stuff like that. It's very different culture. Yeah,
and so I would have been immediately saying, what about these women who are being attacked for not wearing a veil in Iran? And, how would you feel if your sister was phoning into this show? And I'd have been straight onto that. But your approach was much more measured, and it was a good conversation, whereas mine would have been a terrible one.
Well, I don't know. I was learned growing up just to be patient with people, especially if you feel that there may be a misunderstanding or miscommunication going on. So I just
Yeah.
want to understand what he had to say so that I was able to come back with something that wasn't hurtful, but still could be understood that, I may be not in the same ballpark as him, but can agree that charitable type stuff is still good regardless.
Yeah, I think it ended up being a very productive conversation, and this is what I was saying. Mine would have been a terrible, because I would have just been straight on the attack.
You big hoodlum.
But it's terrible. I've said this on a couple of other interviews. We had, when they used to be able to knock on your door, because obviously there's still some restrictions in place, even though here in Western Australia we don't have any COVID cases at the moment, or we do, but they're all people that have got off aeroplanes.
Well, they got a joke out right now that if you get an email that says knock knock, it's probably a JW working from home.
That's a good one. Yeah, this couple turned up with a young child, 7-year-old, probably 8-year-old girl, and they wanted to approach me on the basis of family values.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I just immediately went on the attack, and I said, if that little girl there believes in evolution when she grows up, you won't talk to her ever again. How's that family values? Yeah. But yeah.
You're basically, depending on which branch of the Christian religion or other religions as well you're a part of, if you turn to science, then you're going to get banished or banned or shunned or whatever, right? So, and that to me is not family values at all.
No, not at all. I'm always asking theists why they don't, pray their tweets into existence, why they actually type on their iPhone, which has been given them by science.
Well, they don't have the prayer button yet, so we'll automatically guess what they're praying for. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen one day. Unlikely.
Yeah, there's the other guy who phones in quite regularly, and I think that they're not taking his calls anymore. But he got on the show that you were on, was Kevin.
Yeah, that's Cafe. That's the guy with the DMT stuff.
Oh, I thought Kevin was the one that was. He was talking about validity of the Bible when he came on. He seems to research something every week on some sort of crackpot site.
Okay. Actually, you're right. I'm confusing the two. I mean, after all, it was a little while ago that I was on. So.
Yeah, I guess it was.
Well, a couple of weeks, anyways.
Yeah. I'm terrible at keeping notes. I'm just gonna, because I know you can actually see me, but I've got my notes for our little talk here,
mm-hmm.
and I keep putting other notes in the middle of other of people's notes. So
that's not very organized, Morph. Not very organized.
It's terrible. And right in the middle here of stuff that I was going to talk to you about, it says functional versus transcribed, and I'm thinking, what the hell is that? And then I'm looking across the page and I'm going, that was from my talk with Erica last week. Because we were talking about genetics and things. And do you ever watch any of those debates? Sort of, modern day debate and all that sort of stuff.
I really, modern day debates to me is kind of the new, for lack of a better word, shitstorm channel. Like a lot of the stuff that goes on there kind of reminds me of the old non sequitur channel. Because they've had a lot of debates, we'll call them, go quite awry in a lot of times, especially when they have some of the more colorful guests on there, like Dawkins or G-Man or one of the other Fruit Loops out there that's just goes nuts about crazy stuff. And but I'll watch if one of my good friends is on the show, like somebody like Randolph Richardson or Shannon Q or Paula G or somebody of those. I'll always go and support them while they're doing the shows. But for the most part, I try to steer away from that channel unless it's a topic I'm really interested in, right? So, but I've seen many folks on there.
I've just jotted something down that we'll come back to actually.
Sure.
From something you just said there, but I had T-Jump on the other day for a chat.
TJ, Tom's great. I love Tom. He's awesome.
He is. He's got a great sense of humor, and he set me straight on a few things as well. There's a few things that I'm going to have to research a little bit more because he was giving me some alternative viewpoints on things as well. He's a very smart guy. He knows a lot about a lot of stuff.
He does.
And
had him on my show too. So
yeah, I emailed him a few weeks back when I saw the God This Girl debate that he had.
Wasn't that fun? Holy crap, she's just crazy. Like, she's not like crazy, but she just, like, the way she does it is just like, holy, here, girl, take a Valium or something. You need to calm down a little bit.
Send us a gummy bear.
Yeah, send her some. Yeah, exactly. But people do get emotional when it's something that they hold close to their hearts, that they believe very much. So, it was just watching how much of it that I did watch. It hit a certain point where it's like, this is just hurting my head now. So I just kind of tuned out. But wow, and just there are some great shots of her all angry and stuff with the freeze frames that people took while this was going on and they put out there. It's just like, it's like, whoa, it's like holy crap. It's like she's going to bite someone's head off. I don't really know her well, so I feel like I'm talking behind the back of somebody I don't even know, but that's just what I got out of it, is basically all.
I love Tom's point of view on it, and he just emailed me back and said dumpster fires are good for views.
Yeah, which is true. It's true. It's very true.
So that was a good, and of course his Darth Dawkins one was absolutely brilliant as well.
Dawkins just tries the same old shtick over and over again. And I love what Shannon does with him. She just like changes the subject every single time. She will not let him attempt to paint her into a circle of philosophy somehow. She's too smart for that. So
that's great. It's actually just circling back while I jotted down, was you mentioned a few people. Why are there so many good Canadian atheist content producers?
Well, if you really look at it from a scale perspective, I can probably name all the well-known Canadian atheists, YouTube atheists, on both my hands. Like, and I'm not even going to include myself, but you've got Godless Cranium, you've got Viced Rhino, you've got Logic, you've got Shannon Q, Apologia, you've got Curious and More Curious, you've got who else? There's a few.
You're going to upset somebody. You're going to leave them out.
I know. But I mean, and there's other Canadians I know that do YouTube, but they don't really tackle too much atheism stuff, like Nadine Callan. And I know I'm forgetting somebody. But the point is yeah, we've got a number of really good content creators here in Canada, but our numbers are still extremely small compared to the US and elsewhere, even England or the UK. And you guys have quite the numbers now. Down in Australia, I mean.
Okay. I don't follow that many Australian ones. Perhaps I should.
Well, you got Nervardia, Nadja Witness, Vagrant Sam. Chris does, what's his name? His YouTube name. Why can't I remember these things? Fuck, getting old sucks. Yeah, sorry, I just cursed. Sorry, family. It happens once in a while.
Maybe my view is just skewed because as soon as I see there's something new from Apologia or Viced Rhino, I tend to that goes straight to the top of my watch list.
Yeah, well, they're both really good content creators, and the stuff that they put out there matters, right? It matters, since they talk about issues that need to have attention on them, like education stuff, where they're trying to push religious nonsense over factual science. And stuff like that. Like, that's what both Rhino and Apologia tackle, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Rhino, his work has improved so much. It was good at the beginning, but it's so well researched now. Anything he puts out now is incredibly well researched. I
Yep.
love it, and of course his is very much tends to be science based.
Yep.
I think Apologia does the same sort of depth of research, but it tends to be more sort of biblical stuff that
Yes.
he does. And
Yes.
when he gets other people to help him with the science, I think when it's sciencey type stuff.
He certainly does. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he absolutely takes apart people like William Lane Craig and the nonsense that they put out.
It's not hard to do. Craig's been using the same garbage for the past 15 years, I think. And, and they love to, whenever people start catching on to their horseshit, like omnipotent, instead of it like all powerful, now it's maximally powerful. Oh, so now you've put on a limitation on omnipotence. Good for you.
Yeah, I think the first time I heard somebody like William Lane Craig, I was not well versed in arguments and things like that. But now I just sit there and I just put my, it's, what does Lilith always say? She always says, there's one you missed. Lilith Liberated.
Oh, Lilith Liberated, yes, from Veritas Voices with Renee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And she's, I've gotten together with her for a few different things that we've done here in the Lower Mainland. So
she always starts Veritas. I think it's when they do the tweets from Batshit Believers, and she says, "Put your oven gloves on first, so you don't hurt yourself with your face palm."
Yeah. I used to have those as a kid. They used to make these things called, I think they were called boppers. And they were like giant plastic balloon things you could put your hands into, and they could punch each other with them. And that's what you need when you're dealing with, especially people like Dawkins and stuff. You just pop yourself in the face with one of those giant billows, right? Which is cool. Yeah. And if you're looking for ways to better your knowledge on fallacies and stuff like that, philosophical fallacies and stuff, get David's book, man. Fantastic Fallacies and Where to Find Them.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
David Worley wrote this one up. Well, he put it together. He didn't write the fallacies. They've always existed. He just put them in a more easier to comprehend style, I guess. And there's a bunch of them in there.
I think 5 years ago, I didn't even know what a logical fallacy was. I think I said to you when I was on your show that, I've always been an atheist.
Yeah.
But I never really worried about it too much until more recently when I've seen the sort of harm that religion's doing. The fact that you've got a VP in the United States like Pence and with the sort of idiot views that he has. And I've spoken to Clint Haycock. I don't know if you've had him on your show.
I absolutely haven't. I've hung out with him here in my hometown. He came up for a visit.
That's great. But he talks a lot about dominionism and things like that, and it's quite scary. Some of the stuff he put me onto that I researched up after I spoke to him, it's actually scary. These people are really trying to take power.
Yes, it is. You've seen The Handmaid's Tale. I think that if everything went their way, you could see something very similar to what you're watching on that.
Yeah, I always felt it should be subtitled Mike Pence's America.
That would work.
Yes. Yeah. So that was interesting talking to Clint, and he put me on, and there was a guy, I think his name was Warnell or something.
Who?
Yeah. There's somebody Warnell. He told me to watch some of his videos, and he's talking about all this Seven Mountains theology and
I think I'm familiar with that,
education and government and law and all these things, and they've got to make sure that they're placing Christian people to make the summit be on the pinnacle of the Seven Mountains, and when they do that, the world's all going to be right and Jesus will come back again.
Right.
Yeah.
Wasn't he supposed to come back during the time of his apostles or disciples or some shit? He's a little late, I think.
Yeah, but maybe one or two of them are still walking around. It might be like Highlander, there can be only one.
Wait, does that mean if Jesus reappears and I take his head off with a sword, I can be Jesus?
Exactly.
Woo-hoo! Hell, that'd be awesome, except I'll turn water into beer. Screw wine. Cheers.
It was funny the other week I had Joe Bangles on. Have you seen Joe Bangles with the World Cup of Cheese?
No, I have not.
Oh, I don't know if you could have missed that on Twitter. It's become a huge thing. He's been on. He came on my show. He's been on with Piers Morgan and all sorts of people.
Cool.
He just started tweeting to people and saying, "What's your favourite cheese?" And then he ran this World Cup of cheese, and he had literally, tens of thousands of people were voting, on cheddar versus mozzarella and things like that.
It's just, love to see if Felicia was a part of that. Felicia's one of the co-hosts of Utah Outcasts, and she's a self-appointed cheese expert. So I'll have to see if she got involved with that.
Yeah, that would be funny. And I asked him right at the end if you could share a cheese board with any character from either from history or from fiction or any character at all, who would it be? And he said Jesus.
Really?
Yeah, he said Jesus because he felt that he could knock up a few good reds to go with the wine.
Hey, that's not a bad idea, actually.
And he thought his bakery skills were pretty good, that he could produce lots of bread and stuff to go with it.
Out of nothing. Yet, nature can't produce a universe out of nothing, but God can.
Oh dear. Okay, a couple of things I jotted down and I'm probably going to make a complete mess of this to get your views on. Just some stupid, just some crazy tweets that I've come across in the last few weeks, and see what you think of this.
Ooh, I like these.
So I saw one, and it was actually an article that somebody had tweeted, and it said, Kenyan bishops discover mass sterilization in Bill Gates's vaccine. Bear in mind, that's Kenyan bishops discovered it.
I'm sorry, what?
Kenyan bishops discover mass sterilization in Bill Gates's vaccine.
Well, why should anyone worry if it's just Bill Gates's vaccine?
Well, because there's thousands of different
Oh, you mean, I thought it was just one particular vaccine for Bill Gates that we were going to give him.
No, it's the one that he's developing for COVID. Yeah.
Right. And the sterilization. Well, hopefully it sterilizes COVID. You know what? These people are just, they'll think up. It's like ever since the rags you could buy in grocery stores like the Sun and the Inquirer and all that started not being such a big deal because people could find that stuff online now. Somebody's got to think up all the crazy shit. And if it's the Kenyan priests or whatever, bishops that are thinking this stuff up, well, they can do that all they want. But let's face it, they could pump out this crap all they want, make all sorts of assertions, but nobody needs to take them seriously. Because there's nothing going to sterilize people with vaccines. Come on.
The thing that got me straight away, though, was it was Kenyan bishops, not scientists. I mean, how much time do the bishops spend in the lab?
Yeah, right? Right? I mean, I know they wear white stuff, but not lab coats. All right, so let's just leave them be. They'll be okay. Nobody takes them seriously when they think of shit like that, anyways.
What I like sometimes is the response tweets from our side. Yeah. Some of them are much better than the original tweets. There was one I saw the other day. It wasn't actually a response to that one, but it was a response to something, and it was saying that it was being confirmed that Bill Gates can now use cameras in the street to tell who has been vaccinated and who hasn't. But don't worry. Don't worry, if you wear a face mask, he can't tell.
That's almost as good as the 5G shit. All these people worried about the 5G stuff too, which just makes me laugh my ass off. They don't understand how microwaves and radio waves and everything works when they're afraid of stuff like that. It just cracks me up. And yeah, I'm sorry, but cameras aren't going to be able to tell you if you've taken a vaccine. You need specialized equipment for that, and to come up with specialized equipment to put everywhere in the US or globally or whatever is going to cost literally trillions of dollars. And I don't think he's willing to give up his entire fortune just to put cameras that do that everywhere.
I just thought it was clever that they said, don't worry, wear a face mask and he can't tell.
Yeah, they won't be able to identify you. Well, me on the other hand, I think you could identify me even with a mask on, but
I thought that was great. I think it was Lilith the other week who pointed something out about this. I can't quite put my finger on it at the moment. Here's another one. This is the sort of stuff that just makes me face mask and face palm. And yeah, I'd like to get your view on this one because it's very salient point at the moment. But there was a news article about a week ago. 236 people tested positive for COVID in one Oregon church.
236 in one church.
Yeah.
Wow. It sounds like it's almost the entire congregation.
I don't know how big the church was, but they had a picture. I don't know if it was the actual church, but I wouldn't have thought their congregation. I would have thought you're right. It's almost the entire congregation. It wasn't like a Joel Osteen super church or anything like that.
That guy makes me laugh. Osteen? Oh, he's a hilarious idiot stick. He's also kind of an a-hole, if you ask me.
I don't know if you can get behind the psychology of these people, though. That they're insisting on going to church. Usually, these people are the ones that are insisting on not wearing face masks and covered in the blood of Jesus and all this sort of stuff. And then 236 of them test positive for COVID. Does that not tell them something?
Yeah, it tells them that blood does not work. Jesus's blood apparently does not stop the infection from setting in people. So, and that church alone is enough proof to demonstrate that.
Yeah, it almost seems that the evidence is saying that Jesus is actually helping his followers get sick.
Or something. Because it's all about suffering. I don't know why a perfect being couldn't have created a world with zero suffering. Because then we wouldn't learn. Learn what? How to be happy? Like, shut up. What's wrong with you people?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's another one here. And this is a bit sickening. There was a picture, it was actually a video, actually. I took a still from it. 9-year-old girl married off to a 60-year-old man. This was in one of these Middle Eastern countries. The sort of thing that I would...
9-year-old girl married, how old was the guy? You broke up.
60 years old. This is the sort of thing that I would have gone straight onto Had a Sufi about.
Holy crap. Are you kidding me?
Nah.
Was he following in Muhammad's footsteps? Or? Oh, man. Like, that's just, like, I think of that and I'm literally trying not to throw up. So I don't, like, that stuff I never understood that. That's just horrifying. A 9-year-old girl being forced to marry a 60-year-old man or 60-year-old man. That's what? Why? Yeah.
Do you think that's immoral? No.
Yeah, absolutely. I do.
Okay. How do you ground your morals?
Hey, Darth. I ground my morals on the well-being of my fellow human beings, and I'll do whatever I can to make it better for anyone, right? And I think that marrying a 9-year-old girl, if you're 60, is immoral as well. You know what I'm about to say, but I'm not going to say it because it's a family show. It's immoral, bottom line. But yeah, it's wrong.
Yeah,
that's pedophilia is what that is.
Yeah, I thank you for not swearing on my fucking show.
Damn it! This is why I like you.
So, yeah, when I hear about sort of moral arguments, I always, it's a face palm. It's get the oven gloves out, as Lilith says.
Yeah.
When you read the Bible, it's full of absolutely horrendous stuff. How do they think that is the entity on which morals are founded?
They seem to, regardless of that. It's mind-boggling, to be honest, because literally in the book, and they'll say, oh, you're taking it out of context, but I'm like, I don't care that you think I'm taking it out of context. I read it for what it states, and it states that rape is okay, that slavery is okay, that infanticide is okay, that genocide is okay. And not only that, God's kind of like Manson in a way. He doesn't actually do any of the killing, well, except for the flood. He just gets other people and entities to do the killing for him, like the ghost that goes through Egypt and kills the firstborn, or all the armies that he sent to wipe out the Amalekites and the Canaanites and blah, blah, blah. Right? He's like Manson that way. He sends people to do his dirty work for him, other than the flood, right? Or turning Lot's wife into salt, which you can't do, people. Sorry, you just can't.
Did you see the article a couple of years ago that they'd actually found some Canaanites and they've been able to retrieve DNA?
Lebanese.
And they found exactly that the citizens of Lebanon are actually descendants of those Canaanites.
Yep. And there's a couple other places too, but yeah, mostly Lebanon. Yeah.
So that's another biblical statement that went wrong.
Yep. Yeah. Trust me, there's a lot of wrong statements in the Bible, in all of the scriptures. Don't just pick on the New Testament, the Old Testament, hell, the Enuma Elish, the Quran. There's all kinds of wooey bullshit all throughout all the old texts of our religions that have been throughout human history.
I saw a debate on Aaron Ra's channel where he had a guy on who's a Muslim apologist, said that everything in the Quran is absolutely scientifically correct, and there was another guy who was an apostate and obviously not living over there, otherwise he'd be dead, who was saying no, this is not true, and he used as an example that somewhere in the Quran, I'm probably going to get this wrong and somebody's going to correct me on it, but
which is fine.
It said that the fluid that makes babies comes from between the rib cage and the backbone or something like that.
The embryonic fluid or whatever?
Yeah. What angle are they looking at? The semen, basically. What angle are they looking at?
The semen.
Yeah.
That's not where it comes from, people.
No.
I will say it comes out of your nose, for crying out loud. What's wrong with you?
Yes. It's just, and it only comes from between if you photograph somebody from, down on their head, if you know what I mean. So it's somewhere, if you think about a circle around your rib cage and your back, and you photograph yourself from vertically ahead, I'm guessing that your, a Sorry Family Show, balls hang somewhere in that circle.
Well, they do, but much, much further down.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why I'm looking at a vertical plane rather than it's just ridiculous. But that's what this guy was trying to argue, that it depends what plane you look at it in and things like that. Yeah, it's just like...
It doesn't matter what plane you look at it from. Your semen or sperm are produced in the testes. I don't care where you are in the world and what plane you're looking from, that's where they're produced.
Yes.
Now, the fluid that carries them is a mixture of a couple different areas in the same area, but still.
Yeah, but not as far up as the rib cage, unless you're seriously deformed.
No.
Absolutely crazy what some of these people come out with. So, we were talking about morality, weren't we? And I like Matt Dillahunty's description of this, which is that the moves in a game of chess, or the game of chess itself, is subjective, something that's been made up. But once you care about winning, then some moves are objectively better than other moves.
Yep, that's right.
And that to me is exactly the same with morality, that if we decide that the well-being of people, and we subjectively choose that, if the well-being of people is the foundation of morality, then there are some things that we can do, some things that we can do that are objectively better than other things. And that's, to me, is where it comes from.
I agree.
And there's all these different religions and all these different versions of all these religions, and they subjectively choose one of those religions and then say that's the grounding in morality. So it seems that there's not really any difference.
Each division of any religion is going to claim to be the most moral path, the best path, the right path, and they can't all be right. So what's more likely? Just one of them is right or none of them are? We don't need religion or deities or anything to come up with a good moral code. We have a society, and there are different cultures around the planet, so the morals will be a little bit different everywhere you go. As long as they are bent or geared towards the improvement of society and human behavior towards each other, then I think that's pretty morally standard, or high moral standards. It's just to be better people, be the best versions of yourself, unless of course you're a psycho murder killer. Don't be that version. Be the best version of as decent a person as you can be, and treat others with respect, and help and be communal and volunteer and do things to better your community. Then you're going to be what I would consider to be a decently moral human. It's all for the betterment, because ultimately there's a little bit of selfishness in that, right? Because ultimately, if you do things to better your community, better our world in general, then it's going to work out better for you in the long run too.
Yeah. Do you think that any arguments that religious people give are better than other ones? What do you think their strongest one is? And and what would you say against it?
Do I have to answer this? As I don't really think any of their arguments, especially if you're dealing with the existence of deities or where we come from, where the universe comes from, I think all of their arguments are pretty weak. Because we have evidence that completely demonstrates well, not quite the opposite, but that what they're putting out there is wrong. So, sure, we may not know what happened before the Big Bang, but do we really need to? Do we need to know that? We know what happened after after what they call the Planck time, where that brief 1/1000th of a second before the expansion started happening for the Big Bang. We can't go past that yet, but we do know that the universe came into existence. How, it was not entirely sure, but they have some good ideas, and we know everything from that point of not everything, but almost enough to know how the universe came into being and how clusters formed and how galaxies formed and solar systems formed, planets formed, and then ultimately life formed. At least we know on this world it formed anyways, and the likelihood is that it probably formed on other worlds as well. But are they to our level of advancement? Don't know. There could be some more advanced, some less advanced. These are questions that I feel in the next couple hundred years we'll probably have better answers for, if we make it that far. We got to treat the world a little better though, or it's not going to be much left for us here.
I don't find any of their arguments very compelling either. No. And what always gets me, because we talked about William Lane Craig earlier, is that he'll often go through a whole series of arguments, and he'll do the cosmological argument, and he'll do the moral argument, and blah blah blah, and he'll give about 4 or 5. And you've got people like Cameron Bertuzzi. I don't know if you've come across him.
Yeah.
Up to Christianity, and they will say that as far as they're concerned, the best argument is the cumulative argument.
What the hell is that? That's the new one on me.
The fact that they have all these different arguments, they accumulate, apparently. Whereas I think of it as more multiplicative. So if you've got one argument, say you've got one argument, and I'm just going to put a number on it, and you'd probably put a much lower number, but I'm just going to put a number on it and say, let's say that the Coulomb gets you 90% of that. So you've got 0.9. And then the next one gets you 0.9. To me, you multiply them, and now you've got 0.81. You haven't got a better case. And then when your next one's 0.9, you've got 0.729. You multiply them. They're failed. Multiply them together, and it just gradually goes down towards 0.
Multiplication of bad ideas, or what did you call it? The cumulative bad ideas is still bad ideas.
Yeah. All these different failed arguments, to me, just adds up to just a lot of failed arguments. Yeah, give up. Low probability is the one that always drives me nuts, because I come from a maths background when they talk about low probability. And I was watching a video the other day where a guy was talking about protein synthesis and the probability of particular proteins that are self-replicating forming from amino acids that are being produced and things like that. And he was putting, I don't know where they come up with these numbers, but it was like 1 in 10 to the 50 or whatever. It doesn't matter, 10 to the 150. And he was saying, and mathematicians don't say this because I can tell you because I'm a mathematician, that anything that's like 1 in 10 to the 50 is essentially zero. Well, no, it's not. 1 in 10 to the 50 is not zero. It's 1 in 10 to the 50.
Yeah.
And what they ignore is that what wasn't happening with all this stuff, what wasn't happening is sequential trials. So you might say, if you toss a coin, the chance of you getting 10 heads in a row is 1 in 2 to the power 10. Now, if you are just a guy and you just flip that coin and then you try it again, another 10 and another 10, but how much more likely is that to come up if we had everybody in the world doing it simultaneously?
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but everybody in every civilization in the whole universe flipping a coin at the same time. And this is essentially what's happened with this protein synthesis, is that you've got simultaneous trials everywhere in the early Earth where this type of chemistry can be going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And on every other planet where similar chemistry can go on, it's going on.
It absolutely is.
And so there's lots and lots of trials, and it's like there's a really low probability of winning the lottery, but how often do people win it?
Every time a lottery happens, well, almost every time a lottery happens, somebody wins.
Yeah. This was the case in the UK, and it was something like, we're not talking about the same sort of numbers, 10 to the 50 or 10 to the 100 or anything like that, but it was 1 in just under 14 million to win the lottery in the UK. And some weeks they'd get like 3 people who had to share it.
Yep. Happens here too. Yeah. People do win the lottery. The chances are, as they say, astronomical, but you can win the lottery. Well, you can't win unless you buy a ticket, but yes, you can.
But that is zero. The probability of you actually winning if you don't
it's zero if you don't buy a ticket. Right, exactly. Yeah. And when you think of the size of the universe, which is mind-bogglingly massive, the chances of these chemicals coming together to form what we know as RNA through the chemical processes, which is self-replicating, then it's probably happened all over the place because there are literally trillions of galaxies out there. And within those galaxies, some bigger than others, there are billions and billions of stars. And around those stars, there are literally billions and billions of worlds. Maybe not all of them are suitable for life, but anywhere they are, I'll guarantee you at some point life has taken hold because life finds a way to take hold. We know that because we're a shining example of that happening right here in this solar system. And possibly in more than one places, but they're going to go find that out soon. Europa, Enceladus, I think was another one, but anyway.
Yeah, there are some candidates, as you say, even within the solar system. And
yes,
I heard recently that there's some thoughts that there might even be life in the atmosphere of Venus.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember hearing a hypothesis that could be possible. That would be very interesting if they were able to figure that out. That'd be cool to know. Because it could also then be quite possible that there's something floating around in the atmosphere of Jupiter too, or Saturn. Who knows?
Yeah. Talk about extremophiles.
Yes. Yeah.
Coming back to tweets from our side, if you like. there was one that somebody had tweeted, some sort of idiot creationist had tweeted, and he said, how comes the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs didn't kill off cavemen? And somebody tweeted,
what?
Yes. And somebody underneath had tweeted social distancing. They kept themselves 65 million years apart.
I think I saw that one actually. Yeah, that's the ultimate in social distancing, that's for sure. Yeah, because there were no fucking cavemen at the time.
Oh. Yes, this is somebody who thinks that the Flintstones.
Not the Flintstones, yeah.
Yes, keep Dino as a pet and the saber-toothed cat that he puts out every night. Yes.
Yeah, which they're now called Smilodons, by the way.
So, Neil, how long have you actually been running your show for, where you have different people on, do the deconversion stories, or how religion's had influence in your life?
I have been doing my show now. I think I just completed by about a month or so my second year. So I'm now working on my third year. So yeah, I mean, and I think I've got over 300 odd videos going there. So.
Well, that's impressive. I needed to thank you actually, because when I was on your show in the after show, that's where I met Irish,
Mm-hmm.
and I had him on as a guest, and that was just a really nice conversation.
I heard.
He's a very smart guy, and he's been through a lot, and it made me think about the whole idea of there being no atheists in foxholes, and this guy metaphorically has been in a foxhole just recently.
Mm-hmm. I've met many atheists that have been in foxholes.
Yeah.
They say that's just the stupidest thing they've ever heard. It's like,
yeah, I mean, when I think about what he went through with that thing, and he didn't turn back to religion, whereas I was sort of laying in bed this morning waiting to get up, and I heard one of the cats being sick, and I was praying that I didn't stand in it when I got up.
And nobody likes that. It's happened to me a few times with my little bath mat in my bathroom. The cat seems to like to poke in there, so or some hairball or something. I might go, great. That's lovely to have go squishing through your toes first thing in the morning.
Yeah, it was one of those things where if you remember 40 Towers, did you ever watch 40 Towers when it was on?
Every episode.
Yeah, John Cleese, thank you, God, thank you so
Shaking
much.
his fist, yeah.
Yes.
That show was fantastic.
So over 300 videos, and obviously you've had on some incredibly engaging and interesting guests, and other than myself, obviously, because obviously, I want to take myself out of this equation, because obviously I would be the first name you went to. Can you think of any that particularly stand out of those 300?
Oh yeah, there's quite a few actually. I think first of all, a couple of folks that I had on early on in probably the first season that I had out there, I spoke to. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Atheist or Ape.
Yes, I am. Yeah,
and his story with the military stuff and becoming disabled and all that stuff. A lot of really heart-wrenching and touching moments in that discussion. Another one, a fellow by the name of Humanobo, who he's an ex-Muslim, lives still in a mostly Muslim area, so he kind of has to be careful. Although he had no problem going on the camera on my show, because he figured no one in his area would really be watching it anyways. He does face some harsh stuff if he was ever discovered or found out. So it was pretty bold of him to come on to do that. And Eric Murphy, I think, when I had him on way back, there was a couple of moments where him and I have a lot of similarities to our stories. Both of us were adopted, raised in a religion, and eventually found our way out, kind of thing. But there were some moments where where tears came up, and because you think back on some of the moments where I guess the way family treats you when they discover that you no longer have faith or whatever. So and I to me, I find that stuff kind of deplorable when family, like we were talking about earlier, when family gives up on you because you no longer believe what they believe. I think but mind you, it says in the Bible that you must love God over any of your family members or Jesus or whatever. And you always pick them first. So if you have any non-believers in your family, you should shun them. It pretty much says that in the Bible. So, and I think that's just another deplorable feature of that horrific book anyways, or all of them, to be honest. But, and I would say Aaron Ra was another one that stands out, because him and I also had a very similar pathway out of our belief systems, where we went into the paganism, neo-paganism type stuff. And which reminds me, I've just been speaking with No Illusions, and he's agreed to come on, but he's got to get some dental work done. So we're going to wait until September to have him on, and I think that'll be a really good conversation, because the two of us are going to it'll be like comedy hour. We'll just be cracking everybody up. It should be pretty funny. because Noah's a hilarious guy and a super nice guy, by the way. So that's one to look forward to. And I would say Anthony Magnabosco was another one that stands out in my mind, because I very much value the way he does his street epistemology. I think he takes a better take on it than Peter Boghossian, who I had scheduled but canceled because of the tweet he made about people putting their pronouns in their bios, which I was very much against what he had said. And but I won't get into that because that's a whole other topic. Let's just say he was kind of going against his own Socratic method when he made that post. It's like, really, Peter, what's your confidence level on that? Try to use his own shit against him. But yeah, I was unhappy with that. So I kind of was like, yeah, I'm not platforming you right now. Although I respect his work, but he seems to be sliding away from sensibility these days for whatever reason, or rationality. Just what I've noticed anyways. And I'm not the only one that's noticed that. And I would probably say, just because just his voice alone, when you talk to him, Seth Anders, like people that were watching the show with me and Seth Anders said, Jesus, these guys should be doing like ASMR videos because their voices are so soothing. And because, he's got that voice, and apparently I've got kind of a radio friendly voice too. I've got a face for radio, but, so those are ones I think that stand out. And there's many more that stand out. Marie Delafont, David Warnock, there's some great conversations there. Marlene Winnell, who's a lady who does retreats and getaways for people that have been religiously traumatized or traumatized by religion. And there's many more. Godless Mom. We chatted quite a bit about stuff because she's a cradle atheist as well. There's more, and I'm forgetting some, but those for sure. I'm working on getting, actually, I'll reach out to her pretty soon. She follows me actually on Twitter, which shocked the crap out of me when it actually happened, but it's Julia Sweeney, who's the Saturday Night Live alumni. If you remember Saturday Night Live during the, I think about the third season, possibly third or fourth season. I can't remember which one. But she played a character called Pat. It's Pat. And nobody knew what gender Pat was. So they always tried to ask questions to try and get Pat to spill what gender they were, but they never were able to. And then when Pat was like, "Oh, you can meet my friends. This is Chris, and this is Kelly," but those are both unisexual type names, so they could be either. And both of them looked like, "Oh, is that what are you?" Like they couldn't figure them out either. So it was quite kind of a funny little satire on the whole gender issue, and that's quite well before we've had the problems today with people and gender issues and stuff like that. So it was almost prophetic in a way. But Julia Sweeney is a really, really funny lady, and she is an atheist for sure. And I think I would love to have her on and talk about how she found her way out of the belief system too, and I kind of curious as how what does it entail to get to be a cast member of Saturday Night Live? Like, what kind of journey do you have to go to do that? That would be an interesting story on top of her deconversion. So hopefully she says yes. She'll probably just completely ignore me, but hopefully she does say yes at some point.
Didn't she do a stand-up show where she discussed that? And I can remember part of that where she had Mormons knocked on the door. As they were giving the story, she and her thought was, "Man, you really need to work on your sales pitch."
Yeah. She's a funny lady.
Yeah, she'd be a great guest. Yeah,
she's somebody I'd like to have a drink with. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's good that you've actually got some people lined up who might be big guests, because of course it could have all just been downhill after you had me.
No, exactly, right? Like, so I had to think. I brainstormed for days of ways I could top that one. You were definitely a fun one to have on. The whole that outfit you wear, man, it just reminds me of my Vancouver Canucks green man, except they're green and you're red. So there's a whole color blindness thing going on there. But But I loved our chat too.
Yeah, I
Even
do
though
as
you
well.
didn't really have a deconversion, but we still talked a little bit about these crazy ass religious people trying to influence us, which was cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind so much if they could demonstrate any shred of truth in anything that they say.
Right.
It's just,
Well, they say,
yeah.
well, I know God exists. And I always have to remind them, that that knowledge is demonstrable, right? So if you say you know something, you should be able to demonstrate it. And like Aaron always says, if you can't show it, you don't know it.
Yeah, he's got some great sayings, hasn't he? I love watching Aaron. I'd absolutely love to have him on here. I did have a bit of email backwards and forwards with him, and then it just sort of stopped. But I guess he's a very, very busy man who's involved with. Yeah, he's a very busy man who's involved with lots of stuff.
He is. Yep. But he's also very approachable. He's a very down to earth guy, super friendly. Like when I met him and at Faithless Forum, not this, which was supposed to be this year, but the year before, if he was around and he saw me empty-handed, he immediately put a beer in my hand. I'm like, this is why I like you, Aaron. It's not because of all your hard work. It's because you keep me in beer. I got a great picture of him and I standing together. It's two huge, intimidating dudes standing under a sign at a restaurant that says "Monkeys Welcome," which I thought was kind of funny.
Yes, absolutely. But as Jackson Meat always says, if you can read this, you're an ape.
That's right. Jackson Meat. He's one of my favorites, man. I've been a fan of his almost since I started Twitter, and I didn't know what to expect when I met him at Faithless Forum. I didn't even recognize him, honestly. And he goes, "Hey, Neil." I'm like, it's like, Jackson. Oh, shit. And I ran over and said, "Hey, dude," because he's so dark in his profile picture, so I couldn't really make it out. But yeah, we hung out he's a smart guy, Jackson.
Yeah, he is. It's funny, when I had him on, I was talking to him about the fact that when I first came across Aaron Ra, for about the first couple of minutes, I was just taken aback because Aaron Ra has an accent that you don't normally associate with high intelligence. And after listening for him for a couple of minutes, I was like, man, this guy's really smart, despite the fact, of course, Jackson's only one state away from Aaron, so he's got the same sort of accent. And but that prejudice, I managed to push that prejudice aside by the time I'd listened to a fair bit of Aaron. So,
well, we all have prejudices that don't make sense.
Yeah, it's just normally when you hear a character on a TV show that's got Aaron's accent, they normally are pretty stupid, and then you got this guy who's
they're just characters.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got this guy. Like, I listened to a debate with Aaron yesterday. And that guy has encyclopedic knowledge of all sorts of stuff.
All self-taught too, by the way.
Yeah, it's just incredible because he's doing an undergraduate course at the moment. He said,
yes,
he's doing an undergraduate course, and I thought he should be the bloody professor.
He could be. He could teach that stuff, man.
Yeah, well, he does all these educational videos, doesn't he? Because he was worried about the state of science teaching in his state, and he does all these educational videos and things.
And they're great series. I've seen them all.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And like you say, Jackson is a smart guy. And Jackson actually did a 2-minute section for a video that I was doing once. I did this video. I came across a letter from the the Archbishop of Western Australia, and she'd written a letter out to a lot of the Anglican schools in Western Australia, and it was a response to the Archbishop of Sydney, who'd written something about, if you think that marriage equality is fine, you should get out of our church. And she'd written a response to that, and in a way it was a good thing that she'd written a response, and she was saying, like, we're all human beings and we've got to embrace each other and all this sort of stuff. Yep. But then she had this one paragraph that I just could not condone, which said about us being in a fallen world.
Oh, yeah.
Finding our way in a fallen world. And I just had to do a response to that. So I went straight to Jackson. I said, Jackson, what's the chance of you doing me a 2-minute video just telling me how there's no way there can be an Adam and Eve? And so he did that. He did this 2-minute presentation, which I stuck in the middle of that video. And I said, right, if there's no Adam and Eve, this is not a fallen world.
That's right. It's absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because I remember some years back, you talk about Adam and Eve, and when scientists started using expressions like mitochondrial Eve, because they found, like the mother of all humanity type thing. So they call her mitochondrial Eve. It was more of a satirical nod to the Genesis story than actual them thinking that there was something to it. It was more just that was the name that was used, and so why not just keep going with it? But now we call her mitochondrial Eve rather than Eve of the Garden of Eden. I swear that at the time, creationists thought they got to win because of them using the mitochondrial Eve, which just cracked me up. It's
absolutely.
It doesn't equal a win for you, especially when they're actually naming her as kind of a little nudge, nudge, wink, wink to all the other scientists, like mitochondrial Eve. They'll get a laugh out of that. So.
There's a debate I was watching a couple of weeks ago with Standing for Truth, or Standing for Bullshit, as I call him. And he was debating with Erica. And he, without blinking, said that as far as his, I don't know if you've heard, he always goes on about this Dr. Nathaniel Jensen. I did a whole thing about it with Erica. It was really funny, actually. Our first couple of minutes was like really funny because we did this whole play on it. Mm-hmm. And he keeps saying, and he said, this guy has dated using his methods mitochondrial Eve to 6,000 years ago and Y chromosome Adam to 4,500 years ago. And I'm thinking, he didn't even bat an eyelid on the fact that he's got Adam and Eve 1,500 years apart.
Right? Like, that doesn't work either, pal. Even if we were to do a test and found these results, it's still, if with them being 1,500 years apart, it still doesn't validate the Genesis story.
No, absolutely not. And not even in the same part of the world. So
right.
Separated by huge tracts of time and distance.
Well, let's be honest here, Morph. They're not the smartest people. They're not the sharpest pencils in the box, okay?
That was the thing that I discussed with Erica, though.
He seemed to be happy about that, too, for some weird reason. But
some of these people are actually quite smart. And then what they come out with is not smart at all. And you just think, how do you get that? The guy who wrote the book that Standing for Truth is always going on about, Nathaniel Jensen, actually has a PhD from Harvard in biology. So he's not a dunce, but the things he's saying are just stupid.
He's taking what he learned, and like clay, he's molding it to his bias and perspective from the religious perspective. So he's taking this information, and and it's completely dishonest, by the way, regardless of his PhD from Harvard. I don't care where you go to school, but if you're taking legitimate science and molding it into something that works with your biblical bullshit, or attempting to, then you're still a dick, in my mind. I don't care how smart you are and how many PhDs you have. If you continue to take reality and mold it into fantasy, then you're doing a disservice to human beings.
Yeah, especially when he's probably getting paid quite a bit of money by AIG.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started with those clowns.
Okay, Neil, I feel like we could talk forever, and because we've already done one session on your show and we've done one session here now, and I feel that there's more conversation in this for sure.
Oh, I'll be
back. No, aren't you supposed to say that like, I'll be back?
I'll be back. Yeah.
Yes.
I should have shades on for that, but
Yeah, but that would go with your Harley, because he was.
I don't have a Harley.
You don't have a Harley?
No, the only motorcycle I've ever owned, or actually it wasn't even mine, a friend of mine gave it to me, so I guess I technically owned it, was some piece of crap Suzuki back in the late 80s, early 90s that I drove around once in a while. I didn't even have a license or anything. I just did it anyways. Never got caught, so...
My wife actually has a Harley, but
Nice.
unfortunately it's back in the UK. It didn't take the trip to Australia with us.
Oh, that sucks. My dad had
It may arrive at some stage.
maybe, but my dad was going to save his 57 Chevy Bel Air hardtop two-door for his firstborn son, which would have been me, although I was adopted. But and his mom made him sell it before they moved from Florida to Montreal, so I never got to see that car. Damn it. But here's the weird thing. I was adopted, like I mentioned. My biological family, my biological parents, conceived me in the back of a 57 Chevy Bel Air hardtop two-door.
Probably more comfortable than the back of a Harley.
Yeah, I would imagine. Depends on the size of the sissy bar on the back, I guess. But
Yes.
and whether it's retractable or
Anyway, as I said, yeah, there's lots more conversation in this, but unfortunately, and it's my fault entirely, I actually have to be somewhere at 10 o'clock my time, which is only
under half an
24
hour.
minutes away now. Yeah, less than half an hour. So thanks very much for coming on, Neil. I will get this out later and I'll send you the link.
Sure.
And yeah, speak again soon. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, man. It was awesome hanging out and chatting with you too.
Yeah. Thank you.